with us, coming directly from Arizona in the United States to the world. We have Jim Sinur with us. Jim is an independent thought leader in applying digital business platforms, which we're going to call DBP, customer experience journeys, CJM, and business process management, automation, low code, advanced data management, and decision management at the edge applied to business outcomes. Jim has been involved with IT from his teen years and enjoys the ever-growing and changing field, and he is also a highly awarded digital and traditional artist who moonlights writing songs for fun. So multi-talented, cross-industry experience. Jim, what a gift to have you with us. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and expertise with our global audience today.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. It isn't often that I get a world audience, and I'm really excited about it. What I'm going to do is run us through a little bit of history on the technology side. I came at it from a Gartner perspective. But before I do that, and I'm going to cover some of the future things and where I think we're going, which is the digital business platform. So what I'd like to tell you about is, first of all, my experience level is half. Well, I'm having a bit of a problem. Are my slides advancing?
Jim, no, right now it's still on the first one. So if you want to move to the next arrow on the bottom, try that one more time, please.
Okay, it was giving me a ringy-dingy sound.
Yeah, because you're going backwards. Hit the one to go forward. It's the one next to it. There,
Got it.
that one.
All right.
That's the one.
Wow. Yeah, here's a technology guy that can't even figure out the buttons. So my background is half with the the real world implementing, and worked at some very large companies, Northwestern Financial Network and American Express, actually implementing processes, AI, low code back then when we had not the kind of tools that we have today. Then half my career has been with Gartner or as an independent analyst. And consequently, I have, the real world experience and sitting on the sidelines, watching, predicting, and, rating vendors. So the important part is that processes are going to get smart. But actually, everything's going to get smart. You're going to see smarter, mining, smarter RPA, smarter in all aspects as AI gets embedded in a number of platforms. So intelligent processes are going to be relevant for organizations, and they're going to be pertinent. That smarter processes equal better interactions with customers, better results, better outcomes. And the smarter you make them, the more you improve them, the better things are. So I'm going to give you a historical perspective on how the IBPMS emerged. But before we start, let's talk about some of the common names for processes. And you can see them here. You can read just like I can. But when I talk about processes, I'm including all of these versions. BPM, it was one of the more popular and recent ones, but as we all know, some of the bloom has gone off of that particular topic, and it's back to just workflow and process and customer journeys. So if you take a look at the beginning of this, it started with the WFMC, and it was a lot of the content guys were getting together to say, where should this process stuff go? And it was basically processes followed content. And then we came into what is known as the Bpa Era in the late 90s, which is about modeling and simulating, and it grew very fast. There were tools like Eris that drove the market. Then the next era was an explosion of players that tried to integrate the human-to-human processes with the below the waterline integration processes. And at that time, I did a count, and there were up to 200 vendors that were involved from one aspect to another. Then we moved to the BPMS era, which said, well, what do we need to do to make this more successful on a broad scale? And what was necessary, besides methods and standards, were two things. One on the front end, which is recognizing events and patterns so that your process could wake up and do certain things. And the other thing was activity monitoring. What's going on? How do we get this full life cycle of model, execute, measure, adjust, so that you can have continuous improvement. And then content came in again more as a data source, and also was the beginning of the template era, where there were templates of predetermined processes, whether it was horizontal or vertical. Then came the Ibpms era, which is in 2012, and this was a huge sea change. This is where we went social, mobile, cloud, included rules engines under the covers for more agility. Mining started to enter in those separate. Some vendors had that built in early, like a Fujitsu. And then we were more into optimizing. We had done the round trip engineering. Now we want to optimize. And so now we can get into what the black belts want to do, which is constantly optimize. We started moving to cases rather than process instances, and IoT came in, and we started getting into edge computing. So what were the prominent features of Ibpms? And this is courtesy of Gartner back then. And you can see that there were a lot of moving parts. There's a modeling piece, there's a collaboration piece, there's a human interaction piece, your connectivity to systems, active analytics that are always on, and then on-demand analytics, and of course a business rules management system so you could change rules in flight. So the idea of a suite that worked together. The problem with those suites, most of them at that time were somewhat closed. And what has changed going forward is they're much more open. And either they grew the pieces that they needed over time, or they bought them and integrated them. But that's where the Ibpms first started. And I'm going to get into where it's headed next later on in the presentation. So, we call these things intelligence. And, why was it intelligent? And how did you measure it? Well, people challenged, and I came up with what I called an intelligent process measurement, a cumulative process intelligent quotient, just so I could measure the cases. So I could look at what companies were doing, and it had 5 factors. One was the raw intelligence, and you can read that. The key piece under that was the influence of polyanalytics, which is many analytics running real time, machine learning, and we haven't really hit the level 5 yet where the AI is running all the processes, and when we get to independent agents, that will happen. And then if we go under the social side to the right, it's all about collaboration and skills, crowdsourcing, social analytics, and better practices. And we've picked up a lot of that. That seems to be moving quite well. Moving back to the left, it's about agility. And that's the one thing that the Ibpms brought in, was agility through the rules engines and through the policy capabilities. So the agility actually took a step up when we got into case management, where we had milestones. And going forward, we're going to see that a lot of the processes are going to be goal driven. So that means that if the goal changes, the process will change. Now that process is going to be smaller, and it might be bots and agents that are basically coming together to get work done. On the right side, there's the autonomy. Right now, a lot of the processes are programmed. And so this is a freedom level. And this is extremely important, and we're not very far down the line on the autonomy. We're at the, well, processes will do things and then notify you. And we're not quite yet to goal-driven processes that have constraints that said, these guardrails will not be violated. And so the notion of that is growing. And then interactive, where you have bots and agents and process snippets all acting together. So this is the intelligence, quotient, CPIQ, that I developed so I could look at the case studies. So here's an example of one, a dynamic surgery center. I mean, if you've ever had to wait for one of your loved ones while, they're getting operated on, it's pretty scary. So this set of surgery centers tagged the patients, tagged the relative that was going to drive them home, tagged all the instruments, and they were able to, before the day started, predict the schedule. So, they're running through 4 or 5, procedures, and sometimes they get behind, something gets in the way. So what they did is they had a live dashboard that would show where each patient was. And at that time, it wasn't displayed fully, but now they have it so it can be on your phone so you can see where things are. So if anything happens, they can do a visual simulation and determine everything with a positive outcome. But we all know the real world, things don't always do that. So once a goal is attained, it lets you know, but if a goal is out of sorts, it will resimulate and adjust the goals and give a new visual dashboard. And consequently, you know where that is. So I use the CPIQ to show, well, how is this working? Well, it's high in visualization. It's very goal driven. It uses a lot of analytics. It, basically kind of moves ahead and notifies. So this has a fairly high IQ for a process. Here's another example. This is the farming operations where in arid situations, and I live in Arizona, it's pretty arid. We have a lot of these watering machines, and southwestern US has that as well, and so does Australia. And most of this was done in Australia. So it used to be the farmers had to turn on these robots, water robots, that had fertilizer inside of them. Well, they changed that so they would work automatically, and it would dynamically determine the water fertilizer mix by having IoT devices in the ground measuring. And consequently, it could determine how much water a particular field needed and a particular part of the field. They also came up with national moisture models that showed where the moisture was. They could determine where the mountain runoff was going to go. And they could dynamically adjust these watering feeding systems, and they were able to increase their crop production by 40%. Now, since I wrote this up, they are now coming up with new variants of seeds based on this kind of environment. So they're learning how to genetically put the right kinds of plants that respond well to this kind of system. So this was, highly successful, and you can see it's very agile, some visualization. The raw intelligence, again, was analytics, not very social, not a lot of interaction, but a lot of learning. So this was a fairly smart way to do things, but it was a different kind of smart. So, you know, where are things going from there? And that was done with early IBPMSs. I believe this particular one was Appian, and the one before was Bosch, when Bosch had a BPM engine that they were selling separately. So let's talk about where processes are going. I mean, most people think of processes in this lower left-hand side, very structured, sequential. But that'll still be there, but it'll be intermixed with case collaboration, where you have snippets of sequence that you pull in at the right time once you determine something needs to be happening. And then the third in the upper right are basically smart bots that are really independent resources that dynamically come together and create a process dynamically. That's where we're headed. And if you read my 2013 book that talks about the next wave of BPM, that's hinted at. So where are people putting digital investments? And so how is that going to affect the IBPMS? So you can see these are very successful: content capture, work collaboration, process automation. Automation, you see that all the time: customer journey, employee journeys, analytic focused, decision focused, AI edge focused, agile focused, low code focused. You've heard a lot of that, and you'll hear more. These are all on-ramps to digital transformation, and multiple things are probably going to be going on at the same time. Now, the question is, how involved is process? Well, you can see by the green that's all over this chart that these things are really strong process laden. So there's a lot of process involved. There's a number of them that have a medium approach to process, and then the agile integration focused is, you know, minimal process activity. So you can see process is everywhere. Oop, I went too far. Here he goes with the buttons again. So processes can direct intelligence applied to work. Now, eventually, resources will direct the process, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So if we take a look at RPA, which up till now has been hot, very hot, mining is working with it, and it's getting hotter, and so is mining. So if you're coming up from the technical levels through the business levels and through the cross-business levels on the x-axis of this chart, you'll see that a lot of the processes are about infrastructure automation, development automation, and, you know, RPA helps there a lot. If you take a look at where process comes from, they're better at dynamic resource automation, whether that be just composing static processes or dynamic processes. And what you see is as process provides more benefit, they're going to be the supercharging of resources. Don't be surprised if AI whispers in the ear of resources to tell them to do something different. So it's about resource assistance, it's about process automation, it's about better journeys. Now, right now, journeys and processes can be quite separate. So if you go to a doctor's office, you have a certain journey, but there's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes that are the process. The problem is there's not a lot of visibility. You know, you sit in the office and you just sit, wait. You don't have any visibility. And so the journey and the process is very separated there. So where are things headed? Today, process is a lot about taking actions. In the future, it's going to be about recognizing things that are emerging. So we're going to go from static situations to emerging situations. And, you know, now that COVID has occurred, we know about emergence and recognition and responding to that recognition. And eventually, the processes will be making decisions as it goes along. If you give it constraints and you give it goals, it can make its own decisions. And the higher up on this chart you go, the more the benefit. So what can processes do? You can see that they're good at recognizing patterns and events. So they're at the front line, they're at IoT. They can help you with decisions and scenarios and let you know if there's an emerging scenario like a pandemic. They can adjust and take actions and direct resources. Now, you can see that there's a lot of things that a smart process can do on the right, and I'm not going to read it to you. But, you know, the idea of having knowledge and alternatives and become goal directed instead of flow directed, I think is the future. So we're going to be optimizing resources, and some of the resources are going to tell us how to optimize in real time using a data mesh. That's where we're headed. So that talks about, and the reason we're kind of changing names, and Gartner's figured this out, if you change names, you can give things life. So the IBPMS now becomes an open digital business platform. So either it's a generalized digital business platform or it's a specialized digital business platform. And where they're coming from is there are some that are AI and decision focused. There are others that are analytic and data science and mining oriented. There are others that are BPM or automation oriented. There are others that are collaboration content oriented. There are those that are component based. There are, you know, that are kind of low code. There are cloud focused, cloud data focused digital business platforms, specialty, and there are IoT edge hardware. So is the IBPMS dead? No. It's going to collaborate. It's going to be open. It's going to be involved. You see more and more process getting added. So this is the chart that shows the digital business platform environment. And let's start at the top. There are a number of technologies that are business impact that are flowing into our digital world. There are a number that are developmental in their impact and others that are infrastructural. So these things are flowing constantly, and I'm going to get into a chart that shows you how things have flowed into our digital world. What we find now in the center of this chart are the kinds of digital business platforms there are. There are, and I'm going to go clockwise, there's the process and automation DDP. Then there's the data science intelligent performance DDP. Then there's the secure data mesh DDP, and I'm going to give you examples of vendors for these so that you can get a handle on it. Then there's the digital twin IoT DDP, and then there's the business application pre-built. And in the center of it all are some that are going to have 70% on average of all of these and become a generalized all-inclusive DDP. Well, off to the left under the goals, you see a little red circle, which is the journey and collaboration DDP. One of the things that Proqis didn't do is it didn't do collaboration really well, and it was a separate world. We're going to see that come together. You're going to see more collaboration in intelligent business platforms. You're going to see more collaboration in trying to get results. You're going to see, we have all of our Six Sigma steps. There's going to be tools that are going to help you collaborate as you go through those steps. And there are huge benefit pools to digital. And I'm going to give you some examples of those. So here are the influences. And you can see at the far right, and I started at the left because, I was around when they did some of this stuff. As a teenager in the 60s, I was involved with some of this early stuff, but let's take a look at what's on the far right. These are things that are going to be coming into your pool. Digital identity, customer excellence, digital assistance, smart bots on the technical level, knowledge management's coming back, cognitive, not just machine learning, not just deep learning, but cognitive thinking kinds of capabilities. And then on the technical infrastructure level, it's quantum, industry 4.0, and cloud, and hybrid cloud. All of these things are influencing the DDP. And we can see, collaboration 2.0 is involved, journeys are involved, chatbots, customer experience, the data mesh, which basically in the cloud gives you your own dynamic view, either as a program or as a person. 5G is coming on, ontologies are coming on. These are all key things. Now, once you get past 2030, I'm lost or dead, one of the two. Because there's more things that are happening in the labs that we don't get a chance to see. So let's move to say, what are these digital business platforms all about? They're going to be more resource centric. They're going to be goal driven, journey focused, and as we see the process and the journey start to converge, more collaboration, more real-time edge, more predictive instead of reactive, more RPA, more low code, more AI and polyanalytic, which means AI and analytics. I mean, there's a huge fight going on. If you talk to the analytic guys, it's all about analytics. You talk to the AI guys, it's all about AI. It's those things working together. The data mesh, which includes new kinds of software, new kinds of data sources, voice, video, images, and more embedded and reusable capabilities. So we're seeing that the digital business platform is an explosion like the Ibpms in 2017. So this is getting explosive in terms of what's being added. So let's talk about some of the vendors. Let's start on the right side. Some of the all-inclusive ones are Genpact, Oracle, Pegasystems, Salesforce, and SAP. Their goal is to become as good as an all-inclusive DDP as they can. Then there are others that are more aimed at automation in the green. We've got Abby, Appian, Blue Prism, Nintex. Pegasystems plays there as well, UiPath. Let's take a look in blue. The kind of lighter blue is the intelligence performance DDP, Apache Spark, SAS, TIBCO, and Wizzly, which comes at it from a corporate performance standpoint. That's a new name to you. Keep your eye on them. And then we have in purple here the secure data mesh DDP. So we're talking about vendors like CrowdStrike, HP Micro Focus, IBM, Informatica, SingleStore, new vendor, watch them, TIBCO. And TIBCO also played a role, I'm sorry I didn't mention them, for the performance piece as well. And let's move over to the left side and talk about the business application DDP. And these are names you recognize: Oracle, NetSuite, Pegasystems, Salesforce, SAP, Workday. And let's get into this little red one where there's a lot of collaboration, there's a lot of video interaction. We have Microsoft, Monday, Parallel, brand new little vendor that wants to be DDP, help you with all of your process improvement efforts. Slack, Zoom, and we saw Salesforce buy Slack because they recognize that this is a way going forward. So in our last bit of time, just checking my time here, in the last 4 minutes, let's talk about how things are coming together. So if you don't have a specialized DDP, if you don't have a generalized DDP, you're probably combining things. So here's an example of an intelligent process with RPA with mining for automation. That's either a pull or a push. Either it's content coming in or it's a process pulling the content. And here's an example of one. This may be very near one of them we heard yesterday, where people have NLP bots that are looking at the words, and these came off of manuals that would help train new workers or advanced workers that were in the middle of a problem they didn't understand. Well, now there's a system that's being used that will pull up the right video at the right time, show you the part, give you all of the tests, how to make the change, depending upon what you need. You might just need, what are the things that are going wrong. But this will have the full bevy of videos brought up in context of a worker trying to fix something. Here's another one where active shooters are often in buildings that people don't understand, and there's a big effort to do a fast scan of 3D floor plans so that the emergency personnel have the ability to have facility familiarity by reviewing these floor plans live on their mobile device or their pad, and they can respond, and they can change the response time and decrease the response time by 21% so far. This is an emergent case study, but it shows you the power of new kind of data in real time. And that's the one nice thing about the data mesh, is it's more real time. Here's an example of a mining situation where there's a lot of moving equipment, and the equipment breaks. And this is what you're seeing in the top left is a front end loader where a tooth is missing. Well, if the tooth is missing, the chances are that's in the dirt someplace. It goes into the processing machines and break the machines. And worse, those things can get projected and create safety situations for the humans that are around these machines and managing them. So this is a case where they're using videos along the way to see if there's any teeth broken. And it was done for safety, but there were significant cost reductions. Here's an example of collaborative distributed intelligence for a trader. So some of the market training is done by bots, but some of it's still done by people. And quite often the trading doesn't consider the yield desires or the portfolio management that's required by, let's say, some high-end customers that are involved with wealth management. And you can see all these bots and agents helping the trader, whether it's forecasting, mining, using algorithms, doing a risk assessment real time, looking at the trading rules and say, can I do this or not do this? All of this is happening very fast, either for a human or a bot. And all of these things give the process, bot, or agent goals and constraints so they can move forward in a trade situation. Here's another one where somebody wants to buy a bike. Either a kiosk or a Zoom type service determines the mood of the person, look at their body build, and try to assess their personality while they're looking into the video. And right now, this personality is a little nervous giving a presentation, so might be a bike to right away. So they're able to, in essence, recommend a bunch of bikes and show a video of that kind of body type on that particular bike and make a suggestion. This came courtesy of IBM. They had one of those implemented. Here's one that has not been implemented, but has been the goal of a lot of companies. And I think we're going to see this one emerge. The idea, instead of having a specialty agent, press 1 if you want billing, press 2 if you want, here are our latest offers, press 3 if you want real support, or scream, I need help. Well, the notion of a generalized agent that has wisdom about the customer, about the billing, about technical issues, about governments and about the products and services that you sell and the status of the account. Imagine AI whispering in the ear of a generalist or showing them something in a pop-up screen. This is being tried in a number of organizations. I worked at 2 companies that tried this before the technology was there and they abandoned it. So that's the end of the cases that I'm going to show you. Here are some of the books that I've written that you might want to look at. This presentation is very consistent with the themes in those books. One's on BPM, the next wave. The other is digital transformation. And then I thought I'd sneak in, sorry for doing this, but showing you a piece of my art.
That's pure beauty, Jim. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Jim, fantastic coverage. Thank you so much. I have to ask about the art just to start. I mean, is there a specific technique, approach? What are you doing there with the art?
Well, you know, on the digital, well, on the hand side, you understand painting and all that, but on the digital side, I use software that do 2D or 3D fractals.
Wow.
And so what I do is the machine will randomize based on the parameters you give it. It'll give you images, and then you select out of those images what you want to work with. So you can change the angle, you can animate them, you can spin them, you can stop them in the spinning, you can change the, you know, the perspective, you can change the lighting, the shadows, and you have a piece of art when you recognize it.
Fascinating, Jim. I shouldn't expect any less from you. It's the true merging of science and art. So thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna ask you. There are several good questions that came up while you're presenting. Ken May says from Hong Kong, excellent presentation, Jim. Thank you for that. The audience really appreciated the kind of the angle of your presentation is different from the other presentations, which is good. The diversity and covering IBPM from multiple angles. You have more of a technology look and view of IBPM, and so that resonated with a lot of people who are interested in that component. And so I will start with Daniel here. Daniel Viner is asking, do you think that process mining should be a standard tool in future BPM suites, or they will continue to be kind of dealt by the technology companies separately, which seems to be mostly how it's being done today?
I think over time, the answer is it will be in a lot of these general purpose DDPs. But it takes a while for these things to be accepted. Look at how long it took RPA to move before people like Pega bought them, people like Appian bought them. So I think I can't predict the time period, but it's speeding up. Mining is delivering a lot of benefits. And we saw Abby bought a mining tool. So, you know, and they're trying to integrate it with their intelligent, you know, process and intelligent content platform. So the buying has started. The question is, do they want to build or do they want to buy? I think they'd be smarter buying. But I know there's a partnership between Celonis and SAP. I don't know if they bought them. I haven't been watching the market, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
Very well, very well. And this is very relevant because next week we have a deep dive in process mining. And as you mentioned, process mining is not brand new. It's been around already for a few years, but it's definitely scaling, much like RPA, I think, scale earlier than process mining. So this is very interesting. Neil Nobi says first, thanks for addressing the vendor landscape. It was going to be his question. And then his question is around if you can cover which industries you see are at the forefront of this evolution with DBPs. Are there specific industries that stand out for you?
Yeah, there are ones that come there because they have money. They're cash cows. So we see a lot of the financial folks are always trying to be better. And that's why I picked the financial industry to start my career. Well, actually, I started in manufacturing, and then moved to the finance side because I was jealous because they had money to spend on technology. So I see a lot of the finance companies, insurance companies, credit card companies, they're in it. They're in it because they have money and they can afford to get better. They want to get better. The other is healthcare. Healthcare is they want to get better because they want to save lives. They don't like what happened with COVID. They want to be better next time. They want to combine real-time data with archival data. They want to combine the patient history with the real-time monitoring that's going on. So they can look at the history of the patient while they're in urgent care of sorts. And so healthcare wants to do it not because they have the money, they want to do it because they have to, because they want to save lives. Manufacturing is always at the leading edge because they're trying to cut costs, they're trying to be efficient, they're trying to produce new products. They're always trying to do things. Now, are they high profit? Are they cash cows? Not necessarily, but again, they're coming because there's the desire to get better, and they share that with the healthcare. Do they have to? Well, yeah, maybe if they want to stay competitive, they have to. And so, we see, supply chains, full supply chains being digitalized from the time that they measure somebody's teeth to the time they give them their choppers, their brand new teeth. It's all done cross companies. Somebody measures, somebody installs, somebody carves out the image of their teeth and manufactures it. And if they can't do it in time where the patient wants it, it goes to somebody else. And so that's starting to happen in manufacturing. Those are the three that I see most often. I'm sure there are others. Well, another one comes to mind is anything that has a platform. So like oil field platforms where there's a lot of service. We see pipelines being inspected with drones looking for emerging patterns in pipelines so we don't have spills. We're going to see more of it in the green energy area because they get to start over. They get to invent things. So I think some of the new emergent things around electric cars, around electrification, around automated driving, all of that is impactful. I think the logistics industry got on this stuff really early. They were on GPS, they were on reporting, but then there are other companies that just want to do something different. Look at the process that Amazon has won the world with. They did it with a process. As a customer, I know where everything is, pretty much, unless it comes from a country that hides it.
Excellent, excellent, Jim. So I have time for one quick question and answer here. And this one is, first of all, I want to say Karen Kirby sends a note saying that fantastic presentation. Thank you for sharing this with us today. And I'll follow that up with the question, not from Karen specifically, but one of the themes that have emerged here is just finish with like kind of hype versus reality. So, we know what technology today has the greatest value creation potential across all industries, and what is another technology that can make stupid happen at the speed of light. It looks really good, but it's not really helping. And so give me the kind of the good and the ugly. So best technology and worst technology right now, not to say that 5 years from now we'll be ready, but best and worst technologies right now.
I'd say right now it's process and RPA combined. I hate to pick two, but those two are delivering a lot of capability. Mining is going to come in there soon. The one that can get you in a lot of trouble is AI. And I was involved with one of the first waves of AI, and we got ourselves in a pickle many times. We eventually worked our way out of it, but we put too much effort in. AI at that time was forward and backward chaining, inductive, deductive reasoning. We had to figure out what to do. We spent a lot of money figuring it out, and we ended up hard coding some of the things we prototyped in AI. So AI can go awry real easy. Forget about the ethical issues. Forget about, you know, machines taking over the world. Forget about, you can get in a lot of trouble with AI. And that's why AI this time, when it came out of its AI winner, played it smart. Let's do machine learning first. We know how to do that. Let's move into deep learning next. Then they'll move into cognitive.
Fantastic, Jim Sinur. Thank you so much for sharing this deep expertise in technology, your historical perspective on the evolution. You have done it. You have the futuristic view as well. It's a real blessing for all of us to have that expertise shared with our global audience.
Well, thank you very much. Now, if I could just work the advanced keys properly, I'd be okay.
Fantastic, Jim. Thank you so much for your time today and for your expertise. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Sinur, directly from Arizona to the world. What a great deep dive into the evolution of technology and really how BPM has evolved into intelligent business process management and will continue to evolve. We're going to wrap up the session, and when we come back, we're gonna go to Bangalore, India, and I'm gonna have the senior director of platform engineer for Target in India talking about how we enable organizations to trust their data. So very excited about welcoming Krishna Rao for that session, and I'll see you back at the top of the hour. Thank you.